All right, welcome back to another episode of School of Fish. I'm with one of my favorite guys in the whole world, McLeod John Baltazar Bethel Thompson.
Crushed it.
Okay, I want to
Let's
make sure I got
go.
that right on the first take.
Yeah.
Mac, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the School of Fish, buddy.
Thank you. Honored to be here. I really love what you got going. So happy to be a part of it.
Mac, I've known you, I think, going on 7, 8 years, close to a decade. You're one of those unique people that when we get together, obviously we talk quarterback and football, but I love this the seasoned like personality of who you are. You are a journeyman in so many aspects of that term, not just as a professional, but as just a human being. You look at life, I think, in a really unique lens where you really just have an open perspective on things. You love people, you love the game of football, and it just seems to come out of you just easily. And I think it's just a God-given thing. Um, can you tell me a little bit about what that is? Do you think that is about you? That just is that more of like how you see the world or what you more nurture, how you were raised? What is that uniqueness about you that I think I'm trying to gauge with?
Well, first of all, thank you. I truly appreciate it. That means a lot. And I think in our environments, we've got exposed to us in an environment of throwing, right? So, and I think that I have a special relationship with the art of throwing. Um, I was early in my career. I remember when I was coming out of college, I didn't have the most, got hurt a lot in college, didn't have the most, productive college experience. And I was coming out trying to decide if I was going to be able to, how I was going to play professional football. And I remember my dad and my parents supported me and they said, we'll give you 6 months. You go figure it out. So I was on the journey of figuring it out. And I would drive to a local park and I would take my shirt and I would put it on a chain link fence. And I had about a collection of 7 balls, random different balls from high school balls to this ball to that ball. And I just throw the ball against the fence. And I think that's where I kind of like built a relationship with the game and a relationship with myself. And so I think coming from that environment, I think I have a love of the purity of it, and I do believe I have a relationship with the football gods or with the game. And so when me and you get together, I think we have that similar vibe, right? There's something special about people putting in hours behind closed doors, putting in hours in like the special fields that you find, right? In those secret fields in those majestic places where you can put work in the dark and you can stack days and stack days. And then when you get to go shine, it's like a miracle happens, right? You make these plays out of nowhere. You make these magical moments happen. And it's not by chance. It's because you stack days in the dark. So um yeah, I appreciate that about the game. I appreciate the artistry of throwing a football. Um there's there's an argument that the prefrontal cortex was developed at the same time that the overhand throw allowed prehistoric man to kill bigger prey, that the consumption of more protein, the ability to throw a spear and kill bigger creatures like boars and woolly mammoths and stuff like that allowed them to consume more protein. And the process that it takes to throw an overhand throw was the same thing that allowed the prefrontal cortex to glow, and they happened in conjunction, right? So I think that the overhand throwing motion is one of the most beautiful things you can do in life, and I think you have similar appreciation for the art of it. So um yeah, thank you for that honor, and I'm open to have this discussion as we go.
Dude, you're the only one that will let tag a throwing to prefrontal cortex to caveman and survival motion and all in one. Like that's what I love about you, dude. And I feel the same way. There's something about throwing a ball that is uniquely humanistic, masculine, just nature and survival at the same time. But you get to do it and make money doing it, which is the coolest thing in the world because it's part of who we are as human beings. Some of us have more unique gifts born with it. I did a little homework on that. Speaking of just the natural, like throwing something, your grandpa was a Olympic shot putter. And I
Yeah.
think that's so cool. And it makes a lot of sense because I've been doing this quarterback thing for over a decade. And you are top three without question, the most natural thrower of a ball that I've ever seen. And that, not telling you this, anything new, I've told you that since I've known you. You do have a special relationship with throwing a ball. You make that thing spin with more RPMs than I think most people I've ever seen in my life. Hall of Fame quarterbacks included. I've seen my fair share. You've got a unique way of really commanding the throw. And I go back and I see that you got a pedigree of an Olympic shot putter. Do you think there's anything that is connected with that and obviously different techniques, but still chucking something?
No, thank you. And another, thank you for the honor. And so he's a cool story too. His name was Wilbur Moose Thompson. So they called him Moose because he was like he grew to his full height at like 6'2" by the time he was like 11. So they thought he was going to be huge. So they called him Moose. He ended up tapping out at 6'2", 220, and that was his max. So he won the 1948 gold medal in the Olympics in Europe, and he was the first person. He had a really good coach at USC when he was a Trojan. So all four of my grandparents are Trojans, and he went to on the GI Bill. He came back from World War II, went to school there, um, and his coach was the first person to teach the spin. So before that, it was just these big dudes would walk up and huck this thing, right? So he was the first person his coach designed it. And there was two, him and another guy, and he ended up being the one that went and performed, and he had a world record for a little bit. But the first person to do it in a international competition, which was the spin. And then the big guys learned how to do it, and they obviously broke his record because he was only about 6'2", 220. And he was such a humble dude. And my mom always says that we were built alike, right? We had the same kind of shoulders and the same kind of build. And so I always took pride in that. And he was such a humble, like quiet guy. And one day I asked him, like, hey, can I see the medal? Like, can I check it out? And he went back to his office, and man, that made me emotional right there. That was beautiful. Um, went back to his office, and he was like, it's back here somewhere, it's back here somewhere. And he goes into the shelf right in the bottom. He slides the door and sitting like in this little box, like amongst some papers, amongst some other stuff and all this stuff that he was doing. He pulled out this little gold medal. It was tiny. It was like this big, but like it had no impact on who he was. He coached for a long time after, and he really did love the process of athleticism, right? And the mindset of athleticism. And he loved the purity of it and the relationship with the game. And I always, like I said, my mom always said I was built like him, and I have a really thick trunk. And I think that's kind of how I rotate. I kind of rotate pretty violently. And like you said, put a lot of RPMs on it. And I do kind of adhere it to some genetics in that situation, because I was not a prolific thrower as a kid. I came on to high school football. I started my first year playing tackle football was my sophomore year in high school when I started on varsity. So I came to it late, and it just was something natural that I knew how to do. My mom taught me how to throw, and that's obviously her father. So there's a genealogy running right down there.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's so cool that played he had success at the highest level, but to him it was just a little step in his own life story and was
It's the journey, man. It's like he took the lessons, and he ingrained the wisdom, and so the medal was nothing. And I guess I've adopted that same thing where it's like I've won two Grey Cups, and my rings are sitting in some little safe down in the bottom of, I haven't looked at them in years, because so much, if you define yourself by outside things, if you define yourself by results, you're going to be hollowed out every single time. So it's the person you become along the journey.
mm,
It's the lessons you learn. It's the wisdom that you can gain. And if you take it process oriented, if you just try to be the best version of you can for this moment and this day and stack those days, then you're not hollow at the end. Because if you're chasing that feeling of the championship trophy, I promise you that when you're hosting that trophy, there's going to be a feeling along the way that was much more gratifying than
mm,
that wasting that trophy. And A-Rod talks about it. A lot of champions have talked about it, that like that feeling of hosting a trophy actually is kind of like a letdown. Like, this is it. That's all I'm supposed to be feeling.
mm.
That I promise you, if you pay attention along the way, the real win is going to be a small moment that was really special of you overcoming some adversity or having a moment with a teammate that's going to be way more powerful than the championship.
Mm. Gosh, love that, man. I want to talk about your journey because it is one of the most unique journeys for you. You are, in the most simple terms, a true professional athlete. You've done this for a living for over 15 years. Like you said, you've won two Grey Cups in the CFL. I I've known your journey and I thought I knew a little bit about it, but doing a little bit of homework, it's so unique to just how long you've played at a professional high level when your college career really didn't have the pedigree or the resume to translate to you being 15, 16 years deep into a career as a professional high at the highest level quarterback. And it was just, to me, it speaks a lot about just the journey and like where you were mentally. You weren't drafted. It's not like you were an All-American in college. You had a good run at Sac State. You went to UCLA, went to Sac State, injury bug along the way. You stayed obviously enough up here to say, I can do this. There was a self-belief, and you found a way to grind in and out of the NFL, high level, being a legend in the CFL. You might be the only one I know that really had a minimal to a resume college career to play as long as you have in the professional level. Can you kind of break that down of what that looks like and what that is for you?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I wish I had a better answer than what I do, because I think that so much of that right now, right, going into year 16 is me trying to figure that out as well. So I'm heading into a future in coaching. And so I aspire to try to like, what can I share that helps the next generation? Um, and I think that like one aspect, and I'll try to articulate it as best as I possibly can, is that it's a Kanye West quote. It's like everything I'm not makes me everything I am. That I think like the real power um is not the things that you would put on a resume. The real power about the experience is when you're willing to accept the worst things that happened. You know, how you respond to the four interception game that matters. It's not the championship, right? The thing that you would put on the resume is not the lesson that you need to be teaching. It's how you bounce back after a bad game, or how you believe in yourself when no one else believes in you, or how do you surround yourself with good people that are going to push you at the worst times and at the best times. And that's what I'm so thankful for is the community that I've had along the way, you know, at Sac State, at UCLA, and the brothers that have pushed me in really hard moments, and inspired me at the highest, you know, that I think if you can really accept, especially at the quarterback position, I think that the quarterback position, the key to being a great quarterback is being the best version of yourself that you can be. I think if Tom Brady tried to be Lamar Jackson, he would not be very good. If Lamar Jackson tried to be Tom Brady, he would not be very good. So I think good quarterbacks figure out who they are quickly. And part of figuring out who you are is accepting what you're not. Um, and accepting, not trying to hide your deficiencies, but being willing to expose your deficiencies, being vulnerable to, you know, this is maybe something I don't do well, or this is a mistake that I made, but how can I fix it rather than trying to put it under the rug? And that vulnerability is not easy. Um, I love working. I've always loved working. I love the process. I will work for the rest of my life. Like I enjoy getting up, and those are things that you find along the way. I remember when I was in Toronto, and we were on a bad streak. We were on a bad team. We were like, I think 4 or 5 losses in a row. The receiver room was running a revolt. You know, one of the receivers tried to fight me in a meeting. Like it was just bad mojo, bad all the way around. I feel like I was like holding the world together, trying to make this thing work. And then I finally broke, and I had a bad game. We were in Calgary. I think I threw 3 picks. And I remember I came back from that road trip, long all night flight back home, and I was laying in my bed the next day. I was supposed to go in and watch the film. I was just laying on my back, and I'm like, man, this is the last thing I want to do in the world. Like I was embarrassed, I was frustrated, I was pissed off, you know, but more than anything, I was embarrassed. But there in that moment, you kind of find things that like, you know what? When in doubt, no matter what, I'm gonna get up and go to work, you know, even if it's my last game, my last season, even if I'm gonna go out and be a construction worker, I'm gonna do it. I love to work. I love that process. So at that time every year, you know, was year to year. I didn't know if that was my last year playing football. So I made the decision in that moment that an identity of who I wanted to be was a hard worker. So that's kind of one of the examples, is accepting that those hard moments, accepting those hard games, and finding pillars of strength along the way to define who you are. Um, and carrying those on, you know.
That is, you say it and then to actually live 15, 16 years of ups and downs of a professional career, there's scars along the way, absolutely. Um, but there's, man, talk about like you said, knowing who you are and knowing who you aren't. Your peaks and valleys have probably made your self-reflection a lot more clear over the years. And that's a beautiful thing because it takes sometimes a whole life to realize limitations and what you are and what you aren't. And the one thing I love about football, especially being a quarterback, the humility is going to come.
Yeah.
And I think the closer you can close that gap and eat that humble pie, the better you're going to be as just an overall person and a better version of yourself. It also speaks like you love the work. You've had good years, you had bad years, you've had MVP years, you've been benched, you've had it all, you've seen it all. You've been cut, you've been signed, you've been in the league, you've been in the CFL, you've won trophies and everything. But over the years, there has to be a reputation built when they come up, when they say McLeod Bethel-Thompson, there just has to be a trust factor that's obvious to me at the GM level, the coaching level, where they know what they're going to get with you. And that trust obviously is why you're still, in year 16 playing at the highest level. Can you kind of to a young quarterback listening, what does that really have as a the downside, and you still have to go to work. You still have to watch the tape where you threw three picks and enjoy the work. Is that something that's should be there? Is that something you have to learn to gain and appreciate?
I think that's something you have to learn, and everyone does it differently. But I think that if I were to look back and look at things that I wish I would have done better, is to remember that this is a game, and to not try to control the journey so much. I wish that um going back to that kind of discussion of being a quarterback is becoming the best version of yourself, is having that self-confidence outside of the game of football that allows you to, every time you step on those into those white lines, you send it 100% without fear, right? You can fail by trying to, you can fail by trying to just barely hold on, right? You can fail at being something you don't want to be in life. So might as well try to be the best version of yourself, right? And the best version of yourself is free. It's letting it go. It's letting it go every single time and remembering that it's a game and that games are played when you're relaxed. Best when you're relaxed, you're comfortable, and you're most authentically yourself. Um, and now that takes understanding who you go back to the point of who you are as a football player, right? Understanding what you're good at and what you're bad at and how can you work within the scheme that you're being asked to work on. But when you send that, you trust what you see, you trust your eyes, and you protect that. I just finished getting my master's in sports psychology, and I wrote my dissertation on performance persona and what that effect is, right? It's like Mamba mentality or Sasha Fierce with Beyonce, or a lot of athletes do that. Is that like when you send it out there, you push it, like let that guy go, let that guy eat, right? Put in all the work you possibly can, grind, 12 hours a day, whatever you want to do to make sure. But once you say that you're ready, send it full go and don't hold back. Because if you're trying to be, a controlled version of yourself, or if you're kind of trying to do halfway in, halfway out, you're not going to be free. You're not going to be the best version, whether that's biomechanically from letting that throw go to process orienting to picking up the defense. That when you step on in between those white lines, be your own best avatar, right? Name that player. I don't care. Call yourself Johnny Blaze or whatever you want to do. But once you step on that field, be the dog, be that best version of yourself, and then keep chipping away and keep chasing that best version. Um, so I think this is all things that I'm going to compile as I put these, 16, 17, I don't know how many years I'll play, but like compiling those together and trying to, help the next generation and help that the next person not make the mistakes I made.
When you say play free, how do you play free when you might be a backup, getting limited reps, trying to play within a system so a coach trusts that you know how to operate? How do you walk that line of being a trustworthy X's and O's operator, but also being yourself and not worrying about messing up when you get limited reps?
That's a great question. That's very tough. That's very tough. But I would say that if you're only worried about those 3 reps, then you're not doing enough work, right? You find ways to get those reps, whether it's visual reps, mentally preparing for it, doing film work, doing stuff outside so that you've gone over those 3 reps so many times that like it's rote memorization, right? You've gone over the read so many times. You're walking through. If you're getting 3 reps at practice, you should take 20 minutes before practice and 20 minutes after practice to go through every rep that the starter went through. Then
Mm.
go through every rep that every quarterback on your roster went through, right? What are you doing that's going to separate you from the rest? Because if you're just expecting to, I remember when I was with the Dolphins, I was in very much that situation, and I was taking about 4 reps a game, or 4 reps of practice when I was there, and like you go 3 for 4, and you miss that fourth, and I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I'd be up. Oh man, I wish I would have hit that seam versus cover 3. I was just a little bit short. I was squeezed in that bar of soap so tight that it was constantly escaping me because that was draining me. That was depleting me. Um, Rather than putting in that extra work, that I took every rep, whether it was mentally, visually, film work, walking through each piece, that I was just learning and making every mistake and not making the same mistake twice. So I think that you have to, going back to that point, you have to prepare in every possible way you possibly can. And then when you get those 3, you trust that, right? You don't, you, the, that extra thought that comes in your head where like, ooh, don't throw an interception, right? Or, ooh, just get a completion here. That's a thought that's going to inhibit you from seeing what's right in front of you, right? That's not being in the moment. That's trying to chase the result before the results happened. The only way you can be 100% in the moment is if you just accept what is and you trust that your training is going to take you to that position, right? Those thoughts, you just let them come in and you push them out the other side and you come right back to the moment. And there's 1,000 techniques to do that. It's easier said than done. Breath is a great way, but yeah, be in the moment and send it as best you can.
You're going to be a great QB coach, dude. You're going to be a great QB coach because I can't tell you how many times, even at high level of football, and I'm sure you've seen it where I see OCs and QB coaches, they're just their whole demeanor and the way they're communicating to their players in the heat of the battle is so off. And like, not that you can't get an ass chewing from time to time, but there needs to be you got to be in sync with your boys. And
100%.
the emotional roller coasters of some of these guys that have been around for years, high profile coaches that are still missing the plot on how to communicate and make help these guys be in the moment is staggering to me.
I,
But
I, I had trouble watching the NFL for a long time because I felt like I self-sabotaged my way out of the NFL. So I was always like bitter about it. But I've gotten back into it in the last couple of years and been watching more. And even you see in the NFL where you put a little pre-snap and you see that like that look left and right, that little just that and I'm like, uh-oh, this guy's cooked. He's cooked because he's worried about this and there's going to be a scan, there's going to be a little bit, but once you get comfortable, right? And Sam Darnold's a great example. He's just the first person that popped in my head. You saw that look when he was with the Jets, and now you don't see that look, right? And that's from going through kind of his worst nightmare. And I would love to, ask him more questions about his process and what he's come to now. But willing to go through failure and not become a failure. I think that's such like a superpower. Like, how
mm,
can I fail and not define myself as a failure, right? No, I'm just learning, right? And then he went through 2, 3 years, got with Shanahan, learn, just chopped wood, knew he had the talent, knew he had that self-belief, and then put it all together at the same time. And the dude looked like a, as calm as a cucumber out there, his last playoff games and shredded, Super Bowl champ.
yeah.
I mean, just love that journey, right? Love that bounce back. Um, but it's easier said than done. And I think that belief in who you are and that acceptance with who you are is a key to getting there.
Mm. Yeah, I don't think there's a Super Bowl champ Darnold if there's not first a backup at the Niners for a year or two and
So.
recalibrating and finding that love again or finding a coaching that's going to breathe into you and pour into you again.
And finding that recipe, right? Finding that simple recipe, right? Like there's there's only so many people on the field, right? There's 5 eligible people you can throw to. There's usually about 7 people playing defense. Like A curl flat read is a curl flat read. You're running curl flat reads whether you're in middle school or you're in the NFL, right? We're running five on a die, a guy over the ball, curl flat, and we read the squeeze, right? Everyone does it at every level, so it's a simple game. It's how you can make sure that your process is great every single time. Am I checking the box? Do I know under and over fronts? Am I identifying my six in the box so I know who my five are on the back end, right? Can I eliminate this side? And am I chopping wood and willing to be zen enough and willing to be present enough to do it every single time,
Every
over and over and over again, and not let those thoughts penetrate, not let those don't throw an interception thoughts, right? Just be right in the moment. Oh, it's a 4-2 front, right? Oh, we got an inversion from the safety. It's got to be some sort of single high. It's a curl flat read. Boom. There's one guy that can't be right. And can you be calm enough and present enough to make that just consistently over and over again?
I was talking to one of my friends. He's a scout for the Cowboys, and he talks about Dak letting that clock get to a second almost every play, just so Dak feels like he can't be wrong. And
Yeah.
where you've seen it enough times, and Jalen Daniels, a kid I've been training for years. He just got signed with the Buccaneers. Watching Baker operate, we're just like the manipulation before the snap even happens, and just playing two steps ahead with guys who are masters of the craft. And it's not even about the arm strength, it's just about seeing it so many times. And those two guys have been through their own, Bake had to get, almost he had to get resurrected in a different place to get to where he's at now. And that humble pie is so important. And I love what you said about the failure. You're like, learn to fail without feeling like a failure, and like using that as a success jump to the next level.
Yes. And talking about arm strength, I love that. I have to tell this story in that moment just for all the young quarterbacks listening. I was cut from the Minnesota Vikings for throwing the ball too hard. Was cut. Norv Turner cut me, and I wish he would have told me in the moment. But he was a digits guy, so he was 525 as opposed 787, all that type of stuff. So it was all timing based. And I was with the Vikings, then I went to the Niners, got released from the Niners, and back with the Vikings, and that was kind of my longest stint was with the Vikings. I was active for a year, so I felt like I was coming back home, and I thought I was the man, right? I was coming back, guys are welcoming me. I'm finally back to the Vikings. This is gonna be my shot, and I was shredding. I felt like I was throwing the ball better than I ever had before. And we ran these spray cut sevens, which were deep outs. He wanted to do seven and almost no hitch, just like seven and a baby hitch to throw these spray sevens. And I was going back, taking a slow seven, sinking and just humming these baby to the field, to the bound. It doesn't matter where it was, dots every single time, bam, bam, bam. And he kept saying, like sooner, get it out sooner, get it out sooner. And I was like, okay, but I'm shredding them, I'm ripping them. Long story short, the starter goes down. I end up there bringing someone else. I get cut, and it wasn't until like about 5 months later that my agent finally told me. He was like, "Yeah, Norv Turner didn't like you because he compared you to he said you would win every slam dunk contest, but can't play 5-on-5 basketball." And I was like, "Oh, I wish he would have told me that. I would have put some touch on these things. Like I would have laid him out there. But like sometimes that arm strength is your biggest weakness. Like it's your biggest strength, but it's your biggest weakness because if you're not playing on time, if you're not playing in rhythm, you're doing yourself a disservice. Your feet have to talk to you. If you're on time, that rhythm hitch, boom, has got to play into the same timing every single time so that your eyes don't have to do the work every single time. Your eyes can only see so much, right? You're going to see this section of the field, but also this part's going to be cut off by your left tackles that's getting pushed into your lap, right? So the rhythm of your feet and the timing have to play into that. So if you're a big arm, strong quarterback, and you think you can just wait, you're hurting yourself because you're making the job harder than it needs to be. If you have a big arm, yeah, you can stretch that vertical down the field. Now you can play on rhythm on third, fourth level throws, and coaches love that, right? They love that ability. But if you're not able to play on rhythm, you're cutting out a huge part of your own game.
And you've got one of the biggest arms I've ever seen. But every time I see you and I get a chance to bump into you, whether it's once or twice a year, you seem to be a lot more focused on touch, throwing it sooner, getting it out, putting a little more layer on it. Still a thing of beauty. And I love when you bring those CFL balls because that one single bar, sweet. And the thing I love about the CFL is your arm strength. Uh, the field's wider. Those
Mhm.
corners are like rocket ship bombs. But the fun thing is that I've learned about CFL quarterbacks, the successful ones, is that you guys get to throw that thing so early and drop it into
Mhm.
these zones. And I think that's such a great way to play the game because you are understanding anticipation and how to get the ball out and trusting your receiver and knowing what you're looking at. Can you kind of talk about like what that stylistically is for you, who's someone who's just born with a cannon and has had to kind of alter the way you've operated?
Yeah, it's been a process for sure, and you always kind of you take the pride of having it like you got your six shooter in your belt, right? You always can go to it when in doubt, and you're going to thread a needle if you need to that. But the time I've operated best is when you're in rhythm with the offense, and that takes like being really specific about the questions that you ask your coach. And if they can't answer the questions, maybe try to find ways to ask questions so they do answer. Like, what rhythm am I supposed to put this on? Like, what is my key to tell me when I can throw this to space and how can I anticipate? The thing that I found out, I played my third year in the CFL. There's a OC named Jacques Chapdelaine, a French Canadian up here, and he spoke more French than he did English. And his thing was everything was option routes. So it was all flow. Everything was free release the back, right? There's one extra player up here. So you have six eligibles up here rather than five. And so everything was free release the black, and that's flow. And so everything, the inside dig could be anywhere from a 6 to 8 yard shallow to a 12 to 14 yard full dig. Number two could be anything from a post to a seam to like a go ball. And outside could do the same thing, like dig, a short dig, big like outside dig or stem or fall out like fly and die would be called into the zone. So you have to see space. You don't even know what your receiver is going to run, right? So you have to see space. And once I kind of got there, there was also a freedom there, right? Because if you're throwing to open zones, what's the worst that can happen? It probably touches ground. So having that confidence to throw to space and see it hit the ground and be like, no, the receiver's supposed to be in that spot, right? It's very safe to throw into pockets, into empty space, and to get the receivers to run into those zones because you start gaining confidence as to throwing into open space and just seeing those holes and letting it to go when no one's in the picture. The cool thing about the CFL, we'll throw what we call a bad dig or a cutter route, right? So number two is going vertical, and number one's got this like basically it's a bad dig. It's like a dig that you don't quite get on top and run friendly. So you kind of like this mini post, right? And you really got to throw that thing with so much anticipation that when you see it on the screen, you're like, who the heck is this guy throwing to, right? There's no one out there, right? There's a vertical that's probably 60 yards down the field, 55 yards down the field, and there's no one in the space, and you just throw it. And then the guy kind of comes out of nowhere at the last second. And learning that in the CFL was so cool and so, you know, so freeing, right? Because it's like the more I put touch on that ball and put that nice two ball, the better chance that guy has to run and get it, right? If I try to drill that thing, I'm actually hurting my chances of making a completion, right? Because I'm throwing to open space and I'm allowing my receiver to meet me there. So going through that challenge now that came back down in the States and I played American ball, I was like, man, this is a piece of cake, right? Now you got to fit it in tighter windows, but seeing those open spaces, it's just a two on a die, rock and roll, or two set here, or two high there. It's like, man, this game's so static. It's so easy. Just find the hole and throw it there. So I always encourage, especially when you're with your buddies and you're throwing to receivers, like throw no looks, man. Throw things that are to space and test your limits, right? Especially when you're with your buddies at the park. You push the envelope of throwing to open space and bringing your receivers there. Yeah, so that's a great lesson. What CFL kind of afforded me, and I'm very grateful for it.
Okay, two more questions because I know you got split. Give me a story of you've been in the league, you were six, seven teams, you saw the best of the best. Do you have a story of a quarterback in particular that just has always stayed in your mind that has either taught you something or you saw something that was just out of this world special?
Oh man, great question. Great question. I have too many stories. I'm trying to choose one. Being around Tom was really cool because he's such a unique combination of humble and cocky, right? Humble and confident. I first met Tom and introduced myself. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Tom." I told him I was from the Bay Area. He's like, "Oh, I'm from the Bay Area. I'm from San Mateo." I was like, "Tom, I know. Like, you're Tom Brady. Like, I kind of know who you are. I kind of know where you've been." So he's that cool combination of humble at the same time you hear him saying like, I'm the best quarterback that's ever been, and I'm the
Right.
best quarterback that will ever be. Like no one's ever gonna pass me. So that cool combination of kind of cocky and confident, and I think that was super special. I have a a ton of other good stories, but I think that's a gem to kind of for quarterbacks to kind of learn from to how you can ride that wave, right? Be really humble with your insecurities and being humble with just being one of the guys, right? Don't worry about making fun of yourself. Don't worry about being uncomfortable, but have that super high level of confidence. And that confidence comes from your work ethic and the stuff you put in. But like that combination is a recipe for a great leader. To be super confident, but super genuine and a human to everyone.
I love that. Yeah, it's so easy to fall into a trap of trying to drink your own Kool-Aid, and I love that
No.
hearing that from you that Tom stayed in his lane. And then we haven't talked about mechanics a lot, but I want to ask you when you are focusing because you are such a craftsman and you're always searching for the perfect throw. Are you more focused on lower or upper body, or is it a mixture of both when you're really tweaking something, or is it you're going into a workout focusing on one thing only?
Great question. The art of throwing a football it's everything, right? It starts with the right foot or the right toe, and it finishes if you're right-handed, it finishes with the right index finger. And that process of the biomechanic chain that it takes to go from that to that all the way to the top is artwork, And what I'm trying to chase more than anything is the feel. Like I want to be able to create an ignition and let it go and know where it's going to hit consistently over and over and over again. So I study where it gets sticky, you know? I study the points that don't feel smooth. I study the points that aren't on rhythm. That I study the aspects that where am I hurting, right? If my arm's hurting or some part of my body's hurting or some part of my body's tight, what am I doing to create that tightness, And why is that tight? That shouldn't be a tight process. What when I watch myself throw, right? What are the parts that are stiff and one of the parts that are fluid. So I constantly chase the feel. So depending on the day, like there may be a day where I'm just worried about focusing on the instep of my right foot, right? Not being toe dominant and not being all the way in my heel, but right in the middle of my foot. So all my cleats on the back foot are in the ground. Or a day where I'm really chasing, like, keeping my head into the throw, right? So my hand above my eyes, like how am I pushing my upper body in this side into my throw so that it's above my eyes and I'm sending it into my target. So there's no pull away, right? There's no disconnection, right, with that dissociation. Or days when I'm really focused on like that front foot and how that hips like there's slamming into the ground and creating that first break. But really chasing the feel of it. And find moments to just go into jugs mode, right? Just throw, and feel it over and over and over again. You get a buddy standing 15 yards away from you, and you throw. I'd have sessions where I was throwing 300 balls. I throw 75 balls with a guy 15 yards away from me, and trying to groove it as best as possible. So I'm hitting that thing over and over and over again. But that self exploration and that feel is what I'm always chasing. And I think I'll always be chasing that. Tom talks about that late in his career, right? That feeling you could throw 100 balls and four of them felt right. I still am on that same kind of addict's journey where I'm like that next best throw, and I think it's the best thing in the world. It's the best thing in sports. It's hitting a home run. It's hitting a sweet drive. It's really it's hitting a 3-point jump shot like that. When it can be totally free, you're lined up in exactly the moment, and you just send it, and the body figures it out. That's art.
And I'll be honest, like there was a time we trained one time at UCLA, and it was you and me, and I think it was Malik Henry, and you were working an RPO, and you probably did it 15 times. And I thought all of them looked dialed in, and you were angst about something. You were something you didn't, there was just something off where you weren't grooving it. And it was really not disheartening for me as a trainer and a coach, but I couldn't point out what exactly it was. And the last thing I want to do is just try to talk out of my freaking butt and be like, "We'll try this and try that," because it looks good. But you talk about a feel and the nuances, and it makes someone like myself who's chasing the same thing really want to perk up and listen about what it is. Because to me, that looks like a pretty good. You threw a good ball right there. You spun it, but whether it was a head, whether it didn't come off the finger the way you wanted it, like the little detail nuances was I love being around you because the higher up you get into this world, those are the ones you're trying to find those. And
And and
you bring those
that's
out.
yes, and that's just the journey of throwing. And I think that I love that, and that part makes sense to me. And the next level to that is the journey of quarterback, right? How do you do that with every aspect? Were my eyes in the right place? Was I completely in the zone with who my key read was? When that left tackle missed, did I just feel it and found a way to either spin out? Like, Zen on turf, right? How can you meet that moment 65 plays a game surrounded by 21 other bodies, right, that are doing their own thing, and you're just so tapped into the moment that you're able to make every single play right. And that's a lifelong journey, right? And if you let go trying to be perfect at that and tap in with being totally in the moment for everyone and appreciative and loving the process, like, what better are we doing in life, right? Isn't that a recipe for a life well lived? Isn't that recipe for like taking a game and transferring into life? Like, yes, be totally in the moment, be the best version of yourself and chase greatness. Shoot for the stars, and amongst it, you might just be really damn good and loving every moment of it.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to put a button on this convo, bro. That was shoot, I want to go throw a ball right now with my kids in the backyard. Oh, brother,
I'm
thank you.
fortunate I got practice tomorrow. So you know what I'm saying? That's like it's like I'm
Yes.
old as hell now and I get to go throw a ball tomorrow. It's like, how bad can life be? I've been through the darkest valleys and some good peaks, but a lot of valleys for sure, and just appreciating every moment I get to throw a football. And if we can do that, then we've got something.
Dude, you have so much to give back. Football's given you so much. I love your humility about it, your journey, the way that you've soaked in your own experience. And like you said, dude, like full circle, you're gonna give that to someone, I'm sure, in Ottawa in the locker room, a young quarterback trying to figure it out. And that's the beautiful thing about not only football, but just experience in life. I'm
And I'm
learning.
still working on it. And it's it's but the 6 inches between your ears, right? That means everything. And if you're okay with being kind to yourself, and you're good at being kind to yourself, and you're good at working your butt off, like, that's the process that needs to be protected the most, because I haven't always done that, right? And so that's 16 years in, it's like, man, I could get better at everything.
Mhm.
um and that's okay too, and that's a practice oriented, that's a process oriented approach, and I think that will be um what I'm trying to take forward in my next career.
I love it, bro. Well, you're gonna do big things, man. I've always been super proud of you. I'm proud to be your friend and to be just a piece of your journey and any way that I've been in able to help and be in your corner, man. It's been a blessing. And the door's always open in LA, bro. I'm a call away. I got a field for you on standby.
Well, much love. Thank you for having me on. I hope I, made some sense along my rambling, and I hope we can get back on the field together and share my journey. And this is what I want to do. I want to help quarterbacks. I want to help quarterbacks, between the ears as much as possible. And I know you're doing an unbelievable job with all the quarterbacks that you encounter. And it's a hard thing to do. And I'm honored to be along the journey with you, helping, as many people as we can. Just have a better experience with the game we love. So I thank you
Man.
for doing the work. Thank you for having me on, and let's do it again sometime.
Oh, dude, no doubt, no doubt. All right, brother. Have a good one, man. God bless.